Hi everybody, episode 26, the Pacific Theater. We're in World War II, we're now talking about the Pacific Theater. This is going to be General Macarthur is going to lead the forces in the Pacific Theater. And this is the Japanese, the Empire of the Sun. Okay, despite early successes in the Pacific, the Japanese advance was halted, and the United States began an island hopping campaign. You have to know it's called island hopping. That would ultimately push the Japanese back to their home islands. We are trying to get them back to Japan. Again, they've taken over all of East Asia, most of East Asia. They're even heading toward Australia. So we are trying to push them back. Japan took Guam, Wake Island, the Philippines, Hong Kong, British Malaya, the Dutch East Indies, and pushed into China. They are taking over. Empire of the Sun. They are trying to create an empire in Asia. They consider themselves a master race in Asia. There he is, famous corncob pipe. U.S. General Douglas MacArthur. Keep in mind, this is the same guy that burned down the bonus army that marched to Washington during the Great Depression, the year that Hoover was going to be trying to get reelected, and he burned down the bonus army. That was MacArthur that did that. U.S. General Douglas MacArthur vowed to return to the Philippines after being forced to leave. We had to leave. They took it over. They took it over. Look, it's red. They took it over. We had to leave, and he left, but many thousands and thousands of American troops were stuck there, and it was a very devastating. But they got him out. He's the leader. They got him out. He said he will return. Again, this is talking about atrocities. Remember, we're talking about Japanese atrocities. In April 1942, in the Bataan Death March, American and Filipino soldiers surrendered, but were forced to march 85 miles by the Japanese. 1,000 Americans and 9,000 Filipinos died. You can talk about that, even though generally the atrocities were about the civilians. These are prisoners. These are prisoners. And so theoretically, prisoners are not supposed to be harmed. And so this Bataan Death March is very sad. You'll have to look up for more information about it, but you can put it in the Japanese atrocities paragraph. It's really sad. Japanese expansion was finally stopped in the Coral Sea at the Battle of Midway. You always have to know the Battle of Midway. One of the most important battles in all of the Pacific theater is the Battle of Midway. There's a European theater where we're fighting the Hitler and the Nazis and Mussolini and Il Duce, known as Il Duce, and the Black Shirts. But this is the Pacific theater, and one of the most famous battles. It's the Battle of Midway, and we win. We push them back. We start pushing them back. June 3rd through 6th, 1942, U.S. Admiral Chester Nimitz forced back Japanese attack at Midway. That's an admiral. That equals Navy. The forces, the ground troops, equals Douglas MacArthur. U.S. began island hopping, bypassing fortified islands, but taking nearby islands, then bombing them and starving them of their supplies. So we don't go attack the big, heavily fortified islands. We go past them, but then we start bombing the crap out of them. In August 42, the U.S. won at Guadalcanal. There's a whole bunch of these. These are just pictures of the war. This is Guadalcanal. 43, the U.S. took in the Gilbert Islands. We're trying to take back these places that had been overrun by Japan. August 1943, the U.S. took the Gilbert Islands. It's still there. To Frisco. The Marshall Islands. They take back the Marshall Islands. So we're steadily proceeding back. This is awful. This is terrible. I can't believe that our soldiers had to live like this. This is unbelievable. Like, I always wonder, like, how long till they dried out? They don't have more clothes. Their boots, their clothes, everything. At least it's not freezing like trench warfare in World War I. In June 1944, the U.S. took the Marianas and won at the Battle of the Philippine Sea. So we're pushing them back toward Japan. That's sad. In 1944, the U.S. won at New Guinea. This is all in the Pacific Theater. August 44, the U.S. won at New Guinea. Oh, still the same one. These are our troops. Japan. 45, March of 45. Now keep in mind, The April of 45 is when we're going to have VE Day. Well, May 7th is going to be VE Day, victory in Europe. And that's after April 12th, 1945, FDR dies. Then April 28th, Mussolini is killed and hung upside down from an Esso gas station and had his face smashed in with his lover. And then 2 days later, Hitler kills himself and Eva Braun, his lover, maybe wife at that time, and then makes sure that somebody burns his body because he doesn't want to have the Mussolini effect. So this is March of 45. The U.S. in the Pacific, not in the European theater. The U.S. began 24/7 bombing of Tokyo and other parts of Japanese mainland. You can put this down as atrocities committed by the Americans. We're bombing 24/7 Tokyo. That is a civilian center. That is citizens. That is those human beings. That's citizens of the city of Tokyo. Okay, so the European theater. Again, European theater, you know, is Hitler and then also Mussolini. And that's Dwight David Eisenhower leads the Allied forces in the European theater. Adopting a Germany first strategy, when we get in the war, even though in 1941 Japan bombed us, then 2 days later, after we declared war on Japan, Italy and Germany declared war on us. But then even still, we agreed with Winston Churchill. We agreed with Winston Churchill that we would attack Germany first, that we perceived them as the bigger threat. The United States and Britain opened up a second front against Hitler's Third Reich, and combined with Soviet efforts, forced Germany to the brink by 1945. So remember, in World War I, Germany had to fight a two-front war, right, until the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, when Vladimir Lenin, created a separate peace with Germany and went out of the war. Once he created a separate peace treaty with Germany, that left them available to go fight only on the Western Front instead of on the Eastern Front, which is now, there's a peace treaty. So that's what is the problem, is that right now all of Europe's been taken over, but by this point, we already have, Soviet Union has now been invaded. That Hitler has screwed him, so the Soviet Union is being invaded. He needs us to open another front back on the Western Front, so it's a two-front war again. The U.S. struggled against Germany at first because the U-boats were very effective. Unterseeboots. They still have perfected them, even better than they ever were in the First World War. Oh, jeez. In May 1942, the Allies launched the raid on Cologne, Germany. We just bombed them. We firebomb them. We just bomb them. And these are cities. These are cities. These are cities. That's civilians. Again, in your essay, the second essay, the war atrocities, anytime that we're attacking citizens, innocent citizens, that's considered an atrocity, not war. That's not considered war. Half of the people that die in this war are civilians. Britain proposed an invasion against Europe's soft underbelly in North Africa and Italy. I have that all messed up. So anyway, Britain and Churchill. Churchill wants to attack the soft underbelly. So he wants to attack into Italy. Stalin wants us to attack and open a new front. And this is like 43, in 1943 or something like that, that we're going to attack the soft underbelly. And Stalin's like, hey, hello, can you open another front over there? He's getting angry. He's our ally. We need him to be on our side because we don't want them to do what they did in the First World War, which was create a separate peace with Germany and get out of the war. So we've got to be careful, and FDR is a very good master of manipulating Uncle Joe and keeping him along. Joe Stalin and Churchill do not trust each other. They do not trust each other at all. And so FDR does a masterful way of being able to make sure that Joe Stalin is appeased. We want to make sure that he doesn't leave and create a separate peace like he did with the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in the First World War when Russia left the war. We can't have that happen. That would be devastating. So from 1942 to 1943, the North African campaign, the soft underbelly, was defined by a German defeat at the Battle of El Alamein in Egypt. So the Germans, we are starting to win. Before Al Alamein, we never had a victory. After Alamein, we never had a defeat. So it's a turning point. In Africa. In 1943, at the Casablanca Conference, FDR and Winston Churchill agreed on terms of unconditional surrender for Axis powers. We need them to not have conditions. They don't get to say, okay, I'll surrender if you give us Austria or the Sudetenland. The Japanese don't get to say they'll surrender if they can keep the Philippines. Unconditional surrender. This is what some people believe made the war go even longer, is that they weren't going to be able to have a conversation in these treaties, that it was just unconditional surrender and they had no say in what was going to happen. Remember, Germany got destroyed in the Treaty of Versailles. So unconditional surrender for them means that they could be destroyed again. They have no faith in the Allies to do right by them at the end of a war, because it didn't happen at the last war. And then Japan also does not want to have unconditional surrender, because they're going to fight for their emperor. And if anybody even suggests killing the emperor, that the emperor something bad could happen to their emperor, who they could see as a god, then they're like, well, I'll fight to the death then. So some people believe it prolonged the war, this determination that there should be unconditional surrender. 43, Sicily fell and Mussolini was deposed. In 1943, Mussolini is deposed. He finds his way back into power, but then not long later, a couple years later, he's hanging dead upside down on an Esso gas station with his lover. Rome, the Colosseum. Yesterday on June 4th, 1944, Rome fell to American and Allied troops. The first of the Axis capitals is now in our hands. 1 up and 2 to go, like Berlin and Tokyo, the other 2 Axis powers. Berlin is Germany, and then, of course, Tokyo is Japan. But Rome has fallen. That's June of 1944. Actually, 2 days later is D-Day. June 6th, 1944 is D-Day. There he is. There's our lovely dead Mussolini. On April 28, 1945, Mussolini was executed and hung upside down from an Esso gas station. On May 2nd, 1945, all of Italy surrendered to the Allies. This is what they looked like after they had their faces completely smashed in once they were dead. Kind of unbelievable, really. That was his own people. Those were Italians that did that to him. And then the Soviet Union are the first ones to arrive in Berlin. The Soviets begged the Allies to open up a second front against Hitler and the Nazis. That's at the Tehran Conference, at the Casablanca Conference, and the Tehran Conference. Soviet Union is like, open another front. Open a Western front. But Churchill, the one that he didn't like, wanted to attack the soft underbelly of Italy first. And we did. But in the meantime, Stalin's like, hello, like we have the lion's share of us fighting the Germans. Open a Western front. So, 1943 at the Tehran Conference, the big three, Joe Stalin, FDR, Winston Churchill, agreed that Soviets and Allies would launch simultaneous attacks. That's Ike. Ike, he's going to be president after Truman. Eisenhower, they call him Ike. A gigantic Allied cross-channel invasion was planned under General Dwight David Eisenhower. It's called Operation Overlord, and this is D-Day. On June 6, 1944, the D-Day invasion of Normandy began opening up a second front against the Germans, which took a really long time. The Soviet Union didn't believe that the Allies were really going to do this, and so FDR was the one that made sure that we got to that second front. But if it were up to FDR, it would have been sooner. Maybe instead of attacking Italy first. Might have ended things earlier. Everything might have. Like we can say that about absolutely everything. So these are blimps, right? Dirigibles, blimps. This is for convoys. They're up there for reconnaissance. What are they looking for? Untersee boots. They're looking for Untersee boots. So they have to be up high to see where those Untersee boots could be. U-boats. And this is sad. This is just absolutely sad. This is D-Day. It's awful. Thousands upon thousands of men died there. The people that went first were all slaughtered, and the beaches were covered with bodies, and the other people that came after them, many of them had to run across the bodies. I went there in 1995, I think it was, and stood with my heels in the water and looked at all of the beach that they had to cross for Operation Overlord. And then there were nests of machine guns in bunkers up there, literally just mowing down Americans and British and Canadians during these days. And it's at least a football field. It was at least as far as a football field that they had to run at German machine guns that are just shooting, gunning people down. They would aim for the opening of the boats. They would aim for the opening of this from up here. See, the machine gun nests are up here. They would aim for the opening of the boats where all of these people were trying to climb out of the boats. They would aim for that. This is a bad day, but unbelievably we won. We won. That's what it looks like. That's us after we finally got on shore and taken the beach. This is at Normandy. This is at Normandy. We have French soil in Normandy. We have a cemetery at Normandy that is considered U.S. soil because so many people died at Normandy. So many American men died at Normandy that they said it would have taken a year to transport all of the bodies back to be buried. And so all of these soldiers that died at Normandy are now in a United States cemetery that Normandy gave us as American soil. I was standing on American soil in France at Normandy, where all of these people are buried. The Allies met heavy resistance on D-Day, but began pushing deeper into French territory. It's the beginning of the end. We get back France. We finally take France back. With help from the French underground, Paris was liberated in August of 1944. So June, July, August. Within 2 months, we get Paris back. The Vichy government of the Nazis, we take it back. And the Nazis are on their heels. Italy's already done. That's us. This equals France. And then it's after D-Day. D-Day is June. No. So it's now 1945 because we know that April 12th that FDR dies. So this is Truman. Oh, he hasn't died yet. There's FDR. But Truman is his vice president, and Truman's going to be taking over. The death of FDR, and then VE Day, victory in Europe. I have to stop. The bell's going to ring. I'm sorry I didn't have much of a chance to be able to come and talk to you today. I'm still getting other things done. Have a great day.